All right, today we're doing some routine maintenance and we are going to replace a distributor cap on a Jeep Grand Cherokee. It's pretty much the same procedure for any distributor cap replacement. I've found on this vehicle after 30,000 miles it'll crank over a couple extra times before starting, and I'll change out the distributor cap every 30 to 60,000 miles. Sometimes I'll go 50. That way every other distributor cap change out is also a spark plug change out. And wires really don't need to be changed out. They're pretty much high quality anymore. But I changed mine out because I had an issue. I thought it was the wires. Turned out to be a broken spark plug. I must have broke it when I installed it, and that really messes you up because you're installing something new so you don't suspect that new part to be defective. So that kind of threw me for a loop. So anyway, I found the brand Excel to be of the highest quality for the price. They all seem to run between, anywhere from nowadays $15–20, something like that. And I like Excel because it has a very nice vent here because the rotor spins around. It's like a fan. And as you can see, the posts are of a very high quality. They have like a gold finish, which I'm sure is like a copper. The inside, which I have the light at the wrong angle, but the inside is a nice high quality, got a nice carbon button to transfer the voltage from the coil down to the rotor. And then the can you see that one over there? The posts are also of a nice high quality. They're tall, and the width is pretty much a standard width for timing, so I like that. Also, the screws are captured, meaning that you won't lose them when you move the distributor cap around to get it in place. It's a very tight fit in this vehicle, so you don't have to worry about your screws coming out or installing the screw and dropping it. It's already there for you. Let's see, number 1 is marked, so it will go onto the vehicle like this. This is the front of the engine on this particular one, so you have your number 1 marked, so you won't get that wire messed up unless you don't know what cylinder 1 is. You should always have like a Haynes manual or some book. Take pictures with your digital camera, take a whole bunch of them, see what feeds in from one side to the other. Also, I don't know if you can see it. Let me zoom in here. See if I can zoom in. I also label my wires. See, that's number 7. I have 3 7s around there. Most good quality wires now are actually labeled. If I was to pull back that loom, it would have a 7 on it. However, with that loom there and the really tight quarters, you can see there the really tight quarters, it's extremely difficult, and to really look at those small numbers are usually blue on black or something like that, maybe white on black, but they're very small fonts, and the wire loom's there and it's a pain in the butt and you're trying not to get it confused. So by taking pictures you can see what all feeds in there. For example, you can see 7 feeds in there. And what do we have here? We got 5, and then 3, and then 1 goes all the way on the other side there where the distributor cap has a 1. So you can do things like that to help you out. Also on this vehicle, I found it very difficult, even if you take all the wires off the wire looms and get them all free, to get the old distributor cap up high enough where you can fit the new distributor cap in so that you can transfer a wire one at a time, so that you put 7 here, and 1 over here, and just get them in the right place. So unfortunately, I recommend removing all the wires and then removing the distributor cap and rotor, installing your new rotor, and then putting the distributor cap on, and then just being careful and meticulous in rewiring the vehicle by connecting the terminals to the posts. The next issue is clearance. You know, here I have a Craftsman stubby Phillips screwdriver that I like very much, probably one of the only Craftsman screwdrivers that I like and use all the time. However, but what you see, it has to kind of go in at an angle. You don't get a good grip. You know, the posts mess up. And if if you're trying to remove the old distributor cap with the wires on it and do it the old-fashioned way, where you get the old distributor cap out of the way and transfer wires one by one, you're gonna really struggle with that. I have a old. This is also an inexpensive screwdriver. I don't even see a brand on it, but that has a nice clearance on it. You can really get in there. Nut drivers are good also, but they are tall, and because they are tall, let me show you, they hit the firewall, so that's not good. All right, so there's our screw we have to contend with. There's two of them, one on each side, and I'll put my tools in there one by one, and you can see that with the wires on, it's pretty tough. It's very frustrating. With the wires off, it's a little easier. That's why I like to do it with the wires off. And let me show you the different tools. Let's see if I can keep that lit up. I don't have my camera lighting. I just have a drop light. So here's the Sears tool, and clearly it's not long enough. So these guys are 7 millimeters. They might be different from the one you're replacing. This guy actually looks a little big. This one might be 6 and the new one's 7. But anyway, as you can see, if you can get a ratchet on there. So some vehicles still use a distributor, and the distributor has a cap on top of it, thus the term distributor cap. And what that does is a single coil is wired to the center of the cap, and then the rotor picks up the high voltage and the low amps, the high voltage in the center here, and as the rotor rotates around, that's why it's called a rotor, it comes in contact with these posts which deliver the high voltage to the particular spark plug wires, and thus the spark plugs. And the old ones, very old cars in the 80s and 70s, you actually had to loosen the distributor and rotate it around for your timing. I think this vehicle you could still do that, but I've never touched it, and works fine. Get the same gas mileage since day one. So anyway, so I just going to replace the cap. So a single coil goes into the center. Single coil and connected by a wire goes into the center, and then the high voltage is distributed around to the different posts. Nowadays, however, especially all the European vehicles and most of the Japanese vehicles have a coil over top of every single spark plug, and it's connected by a coil spring that is encased in like a Bakelite. So that's what you'll see on modern cars, especially high-end cars, your BMWs, Mercedes, and whatnot like that. They all have a coil over top of each spark plug. So the wires are connected to the posts with like a C-clip usually, and it's a pretty firm grip. If you didn't put any dielectric grease on there, I use Vaseline, the brand name Vaseline, then it might even be more difficult, and depending on how old the wires are and whatnot. But so anyway, let's just start pulling the wires. All right, with the wires pulled and out of the way, because like I said earlier, it is very tight back there, and there just isn't enough clearance to lift the wired distributor up high enough to put the new distributor underneath and transfer it one wire at a time. I just found that way too difficult. It's better to just take your time, pay attention, reference the manual, and put the spark plugs in the correct order. And you'll know right away if you got it out of order when you start it up. It'll be a miss. It'll run rough, or something like that. So anyway, that's what I recommend. Passenger side was a bit, tough to get to. It was almost blind to get that screw off. So out comes the old distributor cap. Might be an Excel one. I usually don't go cheap. And the rotor. Luckily for us, the rotor is keyed. That means it'll only go on one way. Gosh, I see a lot of crap on there. Let's look at it. Wow, I don't know what's going on here. I don't like it, actually. I don't know what is all is on there. Dirt, carbon, something. But that thing is a mess, especially compared to the new one. Let's look at the ends, see what we have on the ends. Let's see. We can see, I can see a lot of crap there on the ends. Oh, look at all that buildup. There's a lot of carbon buildup on there. I tell you, after 30,000 miles, and it just starts messing up. I'll have to check my record, see how old this was, but gosh, I usually don't put off maintenance like this. I rarely see something like this on my vehicles. Let's look at the distributor cap. I saw when I took it off, it was pretty bad. Let me get some light in there. All right, I have my headlamp on. Let me zoom in here. And you can see a tremendous amount of carbon. Look at that post. It's just has a large amount of carbon and buildup and burn. Gosh. Golly day, that's a mess. You can see there's the vent hole. As the rotor spins around, it's like a fan in there, so it lets the pressure equalize. Because these are pretty much, even without a rubber O-ring anymore, they're pretty much sealed and waterproof, and in the 70s and 80s, and even in mostly that time period of vehicles, you used to have to spray like something in there to keep the moisture out, like WD-40 or STP or something like that. So this thing is a mess. Here is the new one. Old one. Yeah, that's where I was getting my misfire from. So anyway, let's put the new distributor cap on. All right, I have my headlamp on, so you'll see a light flashing around in there, but the rotor goes on first. If you forget the rotor, it's not going to work. Again, it's keyed. So some vehicles, are not keyed, but they're older vehicles, maybe early 90s, 80s and stuff. You turn it until it sits down all the way. If it doesn't sit down all the way, your distributor cap will not go on. And so now we have the number 1 over here on the passenger side. As you can see, it's a really tight fit. Like I said, I don't know how to get the old distributor off and up in the air high enough to do these wires one by one. Just going to have to be your own QC inspector here. And well, pick the wrong side. It's difficult to see where it goes. Got these wires in the way. There it is. Doing this from the other side. But that's where the camera is. There we go. It's on there. Even when you're not making videos, there seems to be stuff in the way, so. Well, I got it off of there with a power tool, but the socket seems to be too fat to go on there to get to the other side, so I've got to go to my handy dandy little screwdriver here, get my headlamp on there, and do it the old-fashioned way. Now don't forget, you want to start both sides before you tighten one of them down. If you watch my videos, you know that's my favorite tip to repeat over and over again. And that way you know everything is aligned. Because if you tighten one side down and this side is off center, you're not going to be able to start it. So just do this the old-fashioned way. Go torque it down to Guten tight. So, Phillips screws are not my favorite because they have a tendency to slip and strip out. But if you buy a good quality brand, the screws are pretty decent. You need to just, like I said, get it good and tight. And now we start putting our wires back on. I like to start with the coil, and then number one, because that is set, it's marked on the distributor cap, and then I go around and make sure that I put it in the correct firing. So with the coil and number one in place, I can start going around either way, clockwise, counterclockwise, whatever you're comfortable with, and start putting the rest of the wires on their respective posts. All right, and then after you check it once and check it twice, make sure all your wires are correctly placed, because when you fire it up and it doesn't run smoothly, you got wires crossed, it's a pain in the butt to figure all that out. It really is. You practically have to pull them all off and do them again. And then if you're a neat freak, you want your wires running in a neat way, you don't want them overlapping, then see how these wires are like crossed, and maybe I'd like the one to be over top of the other or something like that. Whatever. That's when you take them off one at a time and you decide which wire loom you want it to run in, and work on it that way and make it nice and neat. Also, when you put them on the distributor cap, you put the terminals on the distributor cap, you will feel them snap in place. There'll be a click, and you can actually feel it through the rubber insulator. So there you have it, distributor cap installation, distributor cap and rotor removal and installation. And it's kind of a fun job, and if you're short, you know, you're reaching in there, you may need a stool, you may need to lay on top of the engine, put something on top of the engine and work in there. It's if you're tall, it's not as bad. So there you have it, and hopefully when you turn the key and it fires up, it will run smoothly.